Hello everybody, my name is Tad Carlson. I am an amateur disc golfer from Champaign, Illinois, and I'm also a proud member of Team Plastic Addicts. Hit up Plastic Addicts, Johnny Harrison's a great guy, Gary Patton, for any of your disc golf needs. I was thinking, with all this downtime we have from the pandemic and the desire to be able to go out and play, now might be a good time to show you what I'm throwing and what I plan to be throwing once the season actually does kick off in a safe manner. So, first off, let's start with my bag. The bag that I use is the Discraft tournament bag, and for the price, this is a fantastic bag. This thing cost me, I think, only like 50 or 60 bucks, and it is really durable. It is a very durable bag. It has a lot of storage for discs in it, a lot more than you would think for such a small bag. You can put a lot of discs in this middle compartment here. It's got a nice putter pocket on the front for easy access. The biggest downside, I would say, with this bag is there's not much storage for other things. There's these two side pockets, and then there's the drink holder. So besides that, there's not too much else that you can put in it. So sometimes if it's a rainy day, maybe I might have trouble fitting all the towels I would like to bring in the bag. But overall, if you're not carrying very much stuff, this is a fantastic bag to use. So let's start looking at what's in my bag. So, first off, my putting putters. The putters that I've been using for the past season or so are these DX Glow Aviars. I really like the DX Glow Aviar for the feel of the plastic. I find it's just a little bit more tacky and gives just a little bit more than regular DX plastic. And I just really like that feel for getting a nice clean release on all of my putts. I'm also of the opinion and the persuasion that I like using beat up putters. I like having my putters seeing some wear on them, having that familiarity built into the putter. So, looking at a few other putters that I have 3 other putters or approach discs that I use. I'll start understable and then go to overstable. So one of my main approach shot discs that I've been loving since last season is this Habit. The Habit is a putt and approach disc from Plastic Addicts. They actually own the mold and make these. This is it's produced by Discraft, and this is kind of like a Z plastic, maybe a Big Z type plastic, just by the feel of it. And this thing is just fantastic. It is a straight to understable, large diameter putter. I'm coming from an ultimate frisbee background, so I really like slightly bigger discs, actually. They feel really great in my hand because I'm so used to an ultimate disc, and this just fits perfectly. And it flies very similar to an ultimate disc. I put it on a slight hyzer, it'll pop up and ride flat for a while. I can put a surprising amount of power on this so long as I'm getting a nice good spin on it. And yeah, it's just straight to right turning. Really like this for my backhand approach shots. One of the discs that's more recently gone back into my bag, actually, that I've been using for approaches is this, which is a KC Glow Aviar. It is a nice big bead Aviar. This KC Glow plastic is a little different than most KC. Again, similar to the DX Glow Aviars. It's got a little bit more of a grip to it, which I really like. I like the bead, lets me feel I can put more power behind this. And I use this kind of for my, like, into a wind backhand, maybe if I need a hyzer out of a disc, and I'm not sure if I'll be able to keep the Habit on enough of an angle or I want slightly more dump, I will use this one. On the plus side also, this is my second ace disc, so nice to have that mojo going when you're throwing a disc on the course too. And then my last disc that I used for approach shots is the Zone, and I love the Zone. Ever since I put it in my bag 2 seasons ago, I think now, this has dramatically changed how I play the game. It is just such a consistent, great forehand approach shot disc. The one I have is a Big Z Zone, and it is like board flat to slightly puddle top super overstable. I can put a lot of power on this with a forehand, and it will consistently fly and then hyzer out. Even if I don't have the cleanest release, if it's a little wobbly out of my hand, it still fights back, which is just great. Works great in a headwind. I usually only throw this forehand. I'll occasionally throw it backhand if I really want something to dive left, but it's just such a great forehand disc. Love my zone for approach shots. Alright, so let's move on to mid-ranges then. I bag 4 mid-ranges total at the moment. That changes depending on the course that I'm playing. We'll start understable and then go to overstable. So, the most understable mid-ranges that I have, I bag 2 of them. The Comet. I love the Comet as a mid-range. Starting off with this one, this is a Jawbreaker Comet that I got at last year's Ledgestone. And this thing is just understable. If I have anything in my bag that will turn over, this is the disc that will turn over. I can put this on a lot of hyzer with a lot of power, still get it to stand up and drift right. I can do very touch shots with it and let it float right and just glide for miles. So I really like this disc. Also in the wind or in the rain, I can still get a really good grip on the Jawbreaker plastic too, and it looks pretty cool, so that's always a plus with your discs. The next one that I've got here is this ESP Comet. This one is quite a bit more stable than the Jawbreaker Comet was. I can put this one on a nice hyzer angle, get it to stand up, ride straight, maybe drift a little right before finishing slightly left. This one's kind of my, if I need to throw something straight, I'll throw this disc at it. I love the feel of this ESP plastic as well, and the swirls are nice and pretty too, so I'm a sucker for a pretty disc out on the course. So ESP Comet, another one in my bag. Next one should be probably no surprise to anybody. Many people bag this, and that is an ESP Buzz. I really, again, just the prettiness of this disc, all the swirls, it is beautiful. This one's a very new Buzz, actually. I don't really have any beat-up Buzzes, but this one I can throw pretty flat, pretty straight, and just let it float, let it just drift left towards the end there. It doesn't dive left or anything, it kind of just floats left, which is nice. I can bomb this backhand. It feels great in the hand backhand. I can throw forehand with this. I don't do it a lot, but it does fly pretty nice forehand as well. So the ESP Buzz. And then lastly, I have a disc that I think is pretty underrated and undervalued. I don't see many people throwing it, and that is the Pine. I have this VIP Pine that I got at the 2017 Trilogy Challenge in Champaign, and it's actually been in my bag, I think, pretty much since then. But recently I found a new use for it that it's primarily being used for now, and that is, it is a fantastic forehand mid-range. A lot of people go with a really overstable mid-range, like a Gator or maybe a Justice from DD, but I really like the Pine for mine because it is overstable enough that it will fight out of whatever I put it on, but it still glides for a really long time, so I can get quite a bit of distance out of this. It's kind of a complement to my zone. If I want to throw my zone, but I need to get it a little bit further, I'll usually reach for my Pine, and the Pine just kind of beautifully fills that role. So I'm really liking the Pine for my forehand approach shots. So that's my mid-ranges. Now I'll go on to Fairway Drivers. I currently bag 5 Fairway Drivers. Again, that number changes depending on the course, but we'll start with the first one here, the understable one, and that is this beautiful Fusion Burst Maverick. I got this one about a year ago, I would say, so it's got some seasoning on it, but not a ton. This is just a great hyzer flip to slight turnover disc for me. I love using this thing in the woods. If ever I'm playing a tightly wooded course, I can usually rely on this disc quite a bit, especially if I need just a slight right turn or need just a hyzer flip to dead straight. this is a great disc for that. And you can surprisingly get quite a bit of distance out of this for, I think it's a 6 or 7 speed. It actually can go quite a ways. So I really am a fan of the Maverick. Another disc that's very new to my bag, I've actually only been throwing it for a couple months now, is the C-Line FD. Got this off of a buddy of mine, Kyle Klein, if you're watching, thanks. I was a little worried and hesitant about this disc before I got one, because I'd heard so many people talking about it, and I was a little worried that the hype was a little overblown. But I find that this disc is pretty much lives up exactly how people said it would. For me, this disc is kind of just a straight flying, put it on whatever angle I want it on, it'll stay on that angle for a very long time. If I want to throw it flat, it'll fly straight for the most part, maybe dive a little bit right before fading out, all staying very straight in terms of lateral movement, not necessarily where I'm aiming. So it is a fantastic disc for wooded courses. I like using it. It holds up well enough in wind that I feel comfortable throwing it a lot in the wind. Quickly becoming a heavily used disc in my bag. C-Line FD. The last of the slow fairway drivers that I have another Fusion Burst, or not the Fusion, what would this be? Gold Line, I think. Gold Line Burst Explorer from Latitude 64. I used to bag a Champion T-Bird to kind of fill this spot, but I was finding that the Champion T-Bird was a little more overstable than I wanted, and I tried out the Explorer and loved it, and it immediately kicked out those Champion T-Birds. This thing is a great, throw it hard, flat, let it fly straight for a while, and then fade out left. Just a workhorse, consistent fairway driver. I can forehand it too, and I do sometimes, but not too frequently. It holds up pretty well in that case too. So, Gold Line Burst Explorer. Next up, probably the most underrated disc in my bag, I would say. I have this Champion Sidewinder, and a lot of people are worried about the Sidewinder, I think because of the flight numbers that they put on this, which I think are quite a bit off. So it's got a 9.5, -3.1, which would lead me to believe that this is a very understable disc. But in reality, I would not say it's that understable. For this one, I can put it on a little bit of hyzer, pop it up, maybe let it drift a little bit right, but then it's going to fade out still at the end. It is a long, straight distance shot. If I need to just throw something straight, like 350, I'm reaching for this disc because I can consistently do that without having to shape it too much, without having to put too much hyzer on it, without having to flex it, without having to throw it perfectly flat. I can get that distance and that consistency out of this disc. And so that's why I think it's such an underrated disc. It just goes straight and it can go ways too. I also use it sometimes for forehands, for controlled touch forehands in the woods. It works out pretty well for that, but it is still not super overstable, so you gotta be kind of touchy with it with forehands. But I do love my Champion Sidewinder. And then the last disc that I have in my bag, I'm not sure whether or not this is a Sexton Firebird or just a Color Glow Firebird, but whatever it is, I like it. Again, got this disc off Kyle Klein, thanks buddy. I love throwing this disc. I love how much of a workhorse it is with my forehand. With this disc, I can put it on really any angle. I can put it flat, I can put it on hyzer, I can put it on anhyzer, and I can consistently know that it's going to finish out to the right slightly. But it's not an absolute meat hook. I can still get some glide, still get some distance out of this disc. So I really am enjoying throwing this Firebird. Definitely my favorite version of the Firebird that I've ever thrown, much more so than like the meat hook of a Champion Glow or a Champion Firebird. So really enjoying this disc. And now moving on to my distance drivers. I've recently added a few more distance drivers than I normally bag. because I'm trying to work on my forehand, trying to work on different things with my game. I might shrink the number again later, but for now, this is what I'm at. So, I'll start off with the discs that I primarily throw forehand. For the most part, for all of my mid-ranges, putters, and fairway drivers, I'll throw all of them backhand or forehand, really depending on the situation. With my distance drivers, I like keeping them a little more separate. I have specific forehand discs, and I have specific backhand discs. So right now I've got 3 main forehand discs, and I've only got 2 that I'll throw either way, but very rarely. So forehand discs, first one that I like throwing this one a lot, is the Star Shryke. I believe this one's a 172 or 173 Star Shryke. And this I just use for my bomb forehands. I can throw this one on hyzer, let it pop up, let it drift left before fading out. I definitely can't throw it as far as my backhand. My backhand still is my more consistent distance shot, but I can still get this one out maybe 370, which I am perfectly happy with, all things considered, with my forehand. So I like this one, put it on hyzer, and let it fly. So Star Shryke. Another disc, man, this is a really dirty disc. I need to clean this up a little bit, but this is the Star Wraith. I think the Wraith is a underutilized disc for amateurs, and even some pros, honestly, could use the Wraith a lot more. I really like it because it fits my hand a lot better than most destroyers do. I find destroyers to be a little too wide and not as comfortable in the hand as a Wraith. The Wraith is slightly slower and so slightly easier to control and to hit the power, the speed that you need it to be on. And I really like this plastic and this feel, this disc for forehands. This is kind of my let it go straight and fly straight for a while before diving out right. Just a consistent flyer within my bag. So I'm really liking the Wraith. This one's also, I believe, 172 as well. And lastly, the newest addition to my bag is, in my opinion, one of the most beautiful discs I've ever seen. I have this Intervention from Plastic Addicts, and this is a very overstable driver. If you look at this, I'm not sure if you guys can see this very well, but this thing is flat, and it's got a very high rim line, which is going to lead to a very overstable flight. But it's also a relatively shallow depth, which seems a little weird, but for a forehand, honestly, it feels great in the hand. It feels kind of like a very, very flat Firebird would feel like, but I can put a lot more power on this, get it to go straight for a while, and then dive right. It is a nice, just overstable forehand disc, and I love throwing it. And I love how pretty it is. Gary, thank you for picking this out for me. Man, this is just, this is beautiful. Thank you. So, those are my primarily forehand discs. I've got 2 discs that I'll throw either forehand or backhand, but primarily I'm throwing them backhand, so I kind of lump them into my backhand distance drivers. I'll tell you which ones they are when I get to them. But starting off with, I have a VIP King from Westside Discs. This one I got at the Foresight Decatur Open, which is a great tournament. I highly recommend going to it if you're available. This one is a understable disc. I think it's 170. Yeah, 170. And this is my roller or big turnover shot disc. I usually throw it backhand. I can throw it flat and pretty hard and get it to flip up into a roller. I can throw it on slight hyzer pretty high up and get just a big, massive turnover. I really like this disc if I need something to turn right or if I want to roll something. I'll occasionally throw it forehand, either a forehand roller or kind of just a touch forehand in the woods. But usually I'm throwing this backhand. So that's the King. And next up, my go-to driver, the mold that I've been really liking the most, and that is the Nuke. And I bag 3 Nukes at the moment, but I love the Nuke for backhand distance shots. It fits my arm speed just perfectly, honestly. I can throw it hard and get the shot shape that I really want out of it. Something that like a force is going to be too overstable for me to be able to get up to speed. First one that I've got here is the X Nuke. I believe this is a 172 X Nuke, and this is kind of my turnover driver disc. The King, I want like a massive turnover or a roller. The Nuke, just a controlled turnover. So throw it on hyzer, get it to stand up and float right for a while without just diving over and cutting or whatever. So I really like this X Nuke for that shot. Next we got the ESP Nuke. This pink one is definitely my go-to driver. If I want controlled distance, I'm throwing this thing. So on those big open courses, maybe like Eureka Temp, or if you ever come to Champaign, Dodds Park, if I'm ever trying to just throw it long shot, I'm going to be throwing this Nuke here. This one I can throw pretty flat, pretty slight hyzer, but pretty flat overall. It'll stand up, it'll float right slightly, and then it'll dive back left. Just kind of the perfect S-shot disc for me right now. And actually still staying relatively straight. I don't need a lot of room to turn this one. I can keep it pretty straight on that flight too. And I can bomb this one. This one's mine that I'm getting around 400 consistently with. So happy with my distance, at least for now. Hoping to expand that coming up. And then the last nuke I have is a newer ESP nuke. This one is a 173 to 174 nuke, and this one's my like throwing into a headwind or throwing with a lot of wind type disc. It's slightly more overstable than that pink nuke is, so I can throw it flat into a headwind. It'll kind of follow that same flight as that pink one without any wind. So it's just a very consistent driver for me in the wind, which there is a lot of in Champaign, Illinois, so I use this disc fairly frequently as well. And then the last disc that I have in my bag is my utility distance driver, and that is this Shimmer Star Destroyer. I got this one actually from Terry Miller at one of the tournaments that he was running. I think it was 3 or 4 years ago now, and this thing has stayed super overstable that entire time. For this thing, I can throw this on a hard flex, I can throw this forehand, backhand, whatever, and it will fight out of it, whatever it is, and become more overstable, and it's just, it is beef. This is a meat hook. If I'm facing a 40-mile-an-hour headwind, which I can face fairly regularly actually out here in Champaign, I will be probably going to this disc to be able to fight through that and get some distance still. So that is all of the discs that I bag in my bag. Everything else that I have in my bag, I have a rangefinder. I find I don't actually use this that often on the course, but when I need it, it is very helpful to have one. I have a swirly mini. This has been my mini that I've been using for, I don't know, season and a half-ish. I have a couple sports sacks. So I have a Smashbox TV one, again, got it from Terry Miller, and then I have a Plastic Addicts one. These are great for keeping your hands dry when it gets humid out. An often underrated thing, I have a bag of pencils. That's always helpful. And then I've got a few snacks in some of my pockets, and then some bag tags from the Champaign County Disc Golf Club. If you're in the area, I highly recommend joining. A lot of fun guys there. And of course a towel. I'll usually have at least one towel on my bag at all times, even on dry days, just to be safe. So that is everything that's in my bag. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. Just trying out the content creation. So let me know what you think. Let me know if you want to see anything specifically. So hope everybody has a good rest of their day. Everybody stay safe, please, in these uncertain times. And if you're able to, throw some discs.